Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and happy Wednesday. I love Wednesdays because it just let us know that we are halfway there. But if you did not know, one of the quickest ways to become a multimillionaire is to get into politics. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar has gone from a modest financial profile to a net worth as high as $30 million in just a single year. So, how does that happen? And most importantly, what aren't we being told? Let's break this down: the facts, the numbers, and the political hypocrisy behind it all. Welcome to Nelly Miranda. So here's what we know. According to new federal disclosures, Omar and her husband now hold assets anywhere from $6 million to $30 million. That's up from about $51,000 just a year earlier. That is a 3,500% increase. The filings credit two businesses her husband, Tim Minette, owns: a Santa Rosa winery that skyrocketed in valuation, and a Washington, D.C.-based venture capital firm called Rose Lake Capital that leapt from a few $100 to between $5 million and $25 million in reported value. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Not that long ago, Omar told reporters that it was ridiculous to suggest that she was a millionaire. She called those claims categorically false. Take a listen.
Omar saying, quote, "Since getting elected, there has been a coordinated right-wing disinformation campaign claiming all sorts of wild things, including the ridiculous claim I am worth millions of dollars, which is categorically false." Omar went on to say she is a working mom with student loan debt, trying to raise a family while also maintaining homes in Minneapolis and in Washington, D.C., the disclosure reflecting those debts.
Now, fast forward to today, and her own disclosures paint a very different picture. That's not just a little misleading. That's a complete 180. And when elected officials downplay their wealth while voting on policies that impacts taxpayers, that's a problem. If you are a millionaire, you're a millionaire. You don't have to lie about it and try to pretend that you're living the struggle of majority Americans. Like, how is that a flex? So what's behind this sudden windfall? Let's talk about Rose Lake Capital. The firm claims to provide structuring for legislation and investments, but there's a major red flag here. First, the firm reported zero income in 2024, zero. Yet, it is now valued as high as $25 million. That is not typical growth. That's a valuation leap without revenue to match. Second, the overlap between her role as a lawmaker and her husband's firm claiming to structure legislation raises serious ethical questions. This is why we need to keep hammering the point that lawmakers should not be enriching themselves while in office. But since it looks like they're never going to just stop enriching themselves, and there are rarely consequences for doing so, politics looks like the way to go to ensure success. It's crazy. Others are criticizing her as well, and I agree with their stance. Watch.
Skyrocketing value is under scrutiny. The Spectator contributor David Seifer Jr. wrote, quote, "Omar's financial disclosure is more than a tabloid headline. It's a cultural moment. Here is one of the loudest critics of capitalism, now sitting on the kind of wealth that capitalism makes possible."
Now, I know a lot of you have asked about supposed links between Omar and the Feeding the Future scandal. But here's the truth. There is no verified evidence connecting her or her husband to that program. At least none that's public at this time. Did it happen in her district? Yes. Were the Frosters Somalian as well? Yes. And did she publicly support the Feeding the Future program? Also yes. But there's no proof that she benefited monetarily from the program. Therefore, we don't need to lean on unproven rumors. But the facts on her disclosures are damning enough. Focus on what's documented. That's how we hold leaders accountable. This isn't about partisan attacks. It's about integrity and transparency. Congressional disclosures are supposed to keep the public informed, but a jump from thousands to tens of millions in just a year without clear details doesn't pass the smell test.
All right. So they're banging on her for being a net worth of about $30 million. And I think her husband sold 2 companies in the last 2 years, I believe, with I think it was up 3,500% for the return.
Yeah, it's sort of curious that her husband has a consulting firm now in Washington, D.C. that can rake in millions of dollars. It's enough to make Hunter Biden blush. You know, I don't know what sort of advice he's able to offer that suddenly made her net worth skyrocket, but I'd be curious to get the details there. And I hope that there are people in the House of Representatives who are willing to investigate this.
The other thing, though, John, is that part of this started is because she was saying it was outrageous for people to have so much money, that millionaires and billionaires shouldn't exist. And so then you dig a little bit deeper and you're like, well, actually, ma'am, you are. Or she doesn't understand how it works.
Dana, they're calling it the Mogadishu miracle, of course, named for the hometown of the congresswoman, that a humble servant of the people is able to go from barely having anything to being a multimillionaire in just 1 year's time. It's the kind of return Warren Buffett could only dream about. And I think that she is going to start selling investment advice to people all over the country, and I bet she'll have customers.
I value entrepreneurship, but growth without revenue, I don't know. That's not business. That's a bubble or worse. And when a firm tied to a sitting congresswoman claims to influence legislation, that's a textbook conflict of interest to me. Omar has built her brand as a champion of the working class, yet quietly stepped into the world of political elites while still playing the underdog, while still condemning capitalism. She might as well have been on Bernie Sanders' Fight the Oligarchy tour. And let's be honest, this isn't just about her. It's about a system that lets politicians on both sides cash in on insider access. It's a swamp. We need an independent audit of these valuations and disclosures, plain and simple. And it's past time for stricter reporting laws where the numbers are verified, not just guessed. If a private business claims to influence legislation while their spouse sits in Congress, the public deserves full transparency. And most importantly, every lawmaker, Republican or Democrat, should be held to the exact same standards. Again, just to drive the point home, in just a year, Ilhan Omar went from modest means to a multimillionaire. That is not normal, and it is time that we stop pretending that it is, unless she hit the lottery or something and we just don't know about it. What do you think? Are these valuations legitimate, or is this just another case of Washington insiders cashing in? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and as always, if honest commentary brings you value, please make sure you like and subscribe, as it really helps support the channel, and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.